is late," he quavered. "Were it not well to—" "The king's business never waits," thundered Ho. "Come apart with me, and swiftly. I have an affair of moment to discuss with you. It is the king's affair," he added with even greater fierceness, so that Pak Chung Chang's silver pipe dropped from his nerveless fingers and clattered on the floor. "Know then," said Ho, when they had gone apart, "that the king is troubled with an affliction, a very terrible affliction, in that he failed to cure. The court physician has had nothing else than his head chopped off. From all the 8 provinces have the physicians come to wait upon the king. Wise consultation have they held, and they have decided that for a remedy for the king's affliction, nothing else is required than a nose, a certain kind of nose, a very peculiar kind of nose. Then, by none other was I summoned than His Excellency by the Prime Minister himself. He put a paper into my hand. Upon this paper was the very peculiar kind of nose drawn by the physicians of the 8 provinces, with the seal of state upon it. 'Go,' said His Excellency by the Prime Minister, 'seek out this nose, for the king's affliction is sore. And wheresoever you find this nose upon the face of a man, strike it off forthright, and bring it in all haste to the court, for the king must be cured. Go, and come not back until your search is rewarded.' And so I departed upon my quest," said Ho. "I have sought out the remotest corners of the kingdom. I have traveled the 8 highways, searched the 8 provinces, and sailed the seas of the 8 coasts, and here I am." With a great flourish, he drew a paper from his girdle, unrolled it with many snappings and cracklings, and thrust it before the face of Pak Chung Chang. Upon the paper was the picture of the nose. Pak Chung Chang stared upon it with bulging eyes. "Never have I beheld such a nose," he began. "There is a wart upon it," said Ho. "Never have I beheld—" Pak Chung Chang began again. "Bring your father before me," Ho interrupted sternly. "My ancient and very much to be respected ancestor sleeps," said Pak Chung Chang. "Why dissemble?" demanded Ho. "You know it is your father's nose. Bring him before me, that I may strike it off and be gone. Hurry, lest I make bad reports of you." "Mercy!" cried Pak Chung Chang, falling on his knees. "It is impossible! It is impossible! You cannot strike off my father's nose. He cannot go down without his nose to the grave. He will become a laughter and a byword, and all my days and nights will be filled with woe. Oh, reflect! Report that you have seen no such nose in your travels. You, too, have a father." Pak Chung Chang clasped Ho's knees and fell to weeping on his sandals. "My heart softens strangely at your tears," said Ho. "I, too, know filial piety and regard, but—" He hesitated, then added, as though thinking aloud, "It is as much as my head is worth." "How much is your head worth?" asked Pak Chung Chang in a thin small voice. "A not remarkable head," said Ho. "An absurdly unremarkable head. But such is my great foolishness. I value it at nothing less than 100,000 strings of cash." "So be it," said Pak Chung Chang, rising to his feet. "I shall need horses to carry the treasure," said Ho, "and men to guard it well as I journey through the mountains. There are robbers abroad in the land." "There are robbers abroad in the land," said Pak Chung Chang, sadly. "But it shall be as you wish," So long as my ancient and very much to be respected ancestors knows, abide in its appointed place. Say nothing to any man of this occurrence, said Yi Chin-ho, else will other and more loyal servants than I be sent to strike off your father's nose. And so Yi Chin-ho departed on his way through the mountains, blithe of heart and gay of songs, as he listened to the jingle bells of his treasure-laden ponies. There is little more to tell. Yi Chin-ho prospered through the years. By his efforts, the jailer attained at length to the directorship of all the prisons of Chosen. The governor ultimately betook himself to the sacred city to be prime minister to the king, while Yi Chin-ho became the king's boon companion and sat at table with him to the end of a round, fat life. But Pak Chung-chang fell into a melancholy, and ever after he shook his head sadly, with tears in his eyes, whenever he regarded the expensive nose of his ancient and very much to be respected ancestor. Here is the summary of A Nose for the King. Yi Chin-ho owed the government 10,000 strings of cash and lay in prison under sentence of death. Excess is to be deplored in all things, even in grafting, and Yi Chin-ho's excess had brought him to deplorable straits. Yi Chin-ho appealed to the governor for freedom, saying he could repay the 10,000 strings of cash and be pardoned by the government. The governor was reluctant at first, but in the end permitted Yi Chin-ho to leave the governor's bedside. Yi Chin-ho presented himself at the governor's bedside the following night, having obtained leave of absence from the jailer. The governor sat up and opened his eyes to see Yi Chin-ho holding out a sheet of paper with a nose in one hand and money in the other. "I seek it whereby to repay the money to the government," he said, "and I seek it to save my worthless head." The governor laughed and affixed the seal, and Yi Chin-ho departed for the king's business. Yi Chin-ho told Pak Chung-chang to seek out a nose and bring it to him, for the king's affliction must be cured. Upon this paper was a very peculiar kind of nose drawn by the physicians of the 8 provinces, with the seal of state upon it. Yi Chin-ho is said to have valued his ancestor's head at 100,000 strings of cash. "But there are robbers abroad in the land," said Pak Chung-chang. "But it shall be as you wish, so long as my ancient and very much to be respected ancestors knows, abide in its appointed place."